about describing the physiological processes of the endocrine system. All right, so the nervous system we learned about controls and regulates a lot of responses to events in the body, helps return the body to homeostasis. The endocrine system works with your nervous system as well as the other systems of the body to make this process possible and to maintain homeostasis. That is the main function, not the only function, not by far, but one of the main functions of the endocrine system. We also have our reproductive abilities, our growth abilities, and our development is all responsible of the endocrine system. All right. We've learned that chemicals, remember, between the synapses of the nervous system, those are called neurotransmitters. When the same chemical is found in the bloodstream or in tissue, like organ tissues of the body, it is called a hormone. So when we are talking about nervous system chemicals, it's neurotransmitters. When we're talking about the endocrine system, like we are this week, we are talking about hormones. The things to remember about the nervous system or the endocrine system putting out these chemicals as well is that the nervous system, I mean, it's firing fast, right? Those electrical signals. Well, the same thing goes for the effects of the neurotransmitters. They hit fast, but they also burn out fast. They're quick. They happen quickly and then they burn out quickly. With the endocrine system, it takes a little bit longer for these chemicals to be secreted and sort of processed through the body. It takes a little while for them to take effect, and then it takes a little while for the body to say, oh, okay, that's enough, and then backs off in that feedback loop process. All right, so speaking of feedback loops, there's negative and positive feedback loops. Your attendance question should have been over feedback loops, and it is important for you to understand them. Feedback loops regulate the secretion of almost every single hormone in your body. All right, the term negative feedback refers to feedback that reverses the original stimulus. It stabilizes physiological function and helps us to maintain our constant internal environment. The systems of control become the physiological foundation for self-regulation. Self-correcting systems use feedback loops to influence their expression, and feedback is a necessary aspect of all communication, not only in your body, but also with your clients. If we give a client a massage, we need feedback to be able to respond, regulate, and adapt the massage application to your client's needs. If the pressure is too light and the client gives us feedback saying, hey, I don't think this is deep enough, then we can increase the pressure because we have heard them. We now regulate our massage and adapt to that request. If the client tells us that the method is painful, then we alter the approach to remain effective, but not painful any longer. You also need to be aware of nonverbal feedback. A client might tighten up, stop breathing, flinch if the massage application is uncomfortable, or they might begin to breathe deeply and slowly when the pressure is satisfying. We talk about this a lot in business and ethics about nonverbal communication and making sure that you are communicating effectively with your clients. All right, endocrine and exocrine glands. The endocrine glands are ductless glands that secrete hormones directly into the bloodstream or diffuse into nearby tissues. Exocrine glands are glands with ducts, such as the salivary and sweat glands, and they secrete their products directly into the ducts that open to specific areas. We're going to be covering the endocrine system as a whole and its functions today and the endocrine glands tomorrow. So I do want to cover exocrine glands right now and maybe create a little small assignment on that for you. So just to go over them real quick, your eyes have tears with tear ducts. Your mouth has salivary glands that produce saliva. Your skin has sweat and sebum. Your stomach has enzymes. The breasts create milk. All right. The liver has bile. The intestines provide mucus. There's a mucosal lining in your intestines. And the pancreas, it makes me Giggle. They just put juices. The pancreas is also an endocrine organ. Just so you know, an endocrine gland. The endocrine glands are the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus, the thymus and the pineal gland, the testes, the ovaries, the thyroid, the adrenal glands. And we're going to talk a little bit about the kidneys, which the adrenal glands are hanging out on. But the kidneys themselves are not considered an endocrine gland, but they are very involved in the same functions of some of these other glands, as well as the parathyroid and the pancreas. So, what is the function of the endocrine system? All right, we've got some main ones that we are going to cover. There are 7 big ones. The first one is metabolism. That's the sum of all of the reactions that our body goes through in order to intake water, food, air, and convert this into energy that we can use to either burn the food and fuel in order to grow, or enable to reproduce, enable to develop ourselves differently, and able to move, walk, run around. Several hormones of the endocrine system help to control the rate and direction of metabolism. Now, we're going to hear a lot about the thyroid gland and metabolism, especially when it comes to pathologies of the thyroid. But 2 other cool glands that have something to do with metabolism are the pancreas and the liver. The pancreas is the key metabolic organ that regulates the number of carbohydrates that are in your blood at any given point in time, either by releasing significant amounts of insulin to downregulate the levels of blood glucose or releasing glucagon to upregulate them. The utilization of carbohydrates and lipids, fats, by the organism is called the Randle cycle, and that is regulated by your insulin. The liver is the organ in charge of processing the absorbed amino acids and lipids, fats, from the small intestine. It also regulates the urea cycle and essential metabolic processes like gluconeogenesis. Okay, sorry, Mrs. L struggles with that one sometimes. Gluconeogenesis and glycogen deposition. So where they are putting the glycogen and such throughout the body. Now, the urea cycle is very exciting because this goes in line with your kidneys as well. You are filtering out your blood to get this stuff out. If your liver is not working, like your aldosterone hormone is in incorrect levels, you could start forming uric acid kidney stones. Just throwing that out there for you. Thyroxine is a hormone that is made and released by the thyroid gland, and that plays a huge role in determining how fast or slow the chemical reactions of metabolisms go in a person's body. The thyroid gland also regulates metabolism in the body by maintaining an adequate amount of oxygen consumption at the cellular level. All right, we're going to learn a little bit more about it. We're definitely going to hear about ATP, things of that nature that help with energy production, but this all has to do with metabolism and the endocrine system. So what's another function? Here's the H word again, homeostasis. It's a constant internal balance, such as regulating your blood pressure, your blood sugar that we just talked about, fluid, as in your water levels, electrolyte balance, your salt levels, and body temperature. The purpose of homeostasis is to maintain the established internal environment without being overcome by external stimuli that exist to disrupt the balance. So what's another function? Growth and development. The pituitary gland is a structure in our brain that produces different types of specialized hormones, including growth hormone, also referred to as human growth hormone or HGH. And the roles of growth hormone include influencing our height and helping build our bones and our muscles. What's really cool about human growth hormone is that it's really only active and comes out to combine with other healing hormones at night in REM sleep. So when you tear down your muscles at the gym, all of that rebuilding actually occurs with human growth hormone while you are asleep at night. It's also why children and teenagers need so much sleep and sleep so deeply when they do, because they need that human growth hormone to help build their bones. They're still in those growing processes, and they need that hormone to be functioning properly, being secreted properly in order to help their body grow and develop properly. All right, another function of the endocrine system is sexual function. The endocrine system is a network of glands and organs that produce, store, and secrete hormones, which are really important in maintaining a healthy sex drive. Hormones play a big role in men's health and women's health, affecting energy, weight, mood, sex, fertility, and much more. The pituitary gland secretes hormones that signal the reproductive organs to make sex hormones. The pituitary gland also controls the menstrual cycle in women. All right, we're going to get a little bit more into this as we talk about reproduction specifically. All right, hormones are responsible for secondary sex characteristics in men and women. Sex hormones contribute to the production of sex cells or gametes. Female sex hormones regulate ovulation, menstrual cycle, pregnancy. It's not listed here, but also lactation. It also produces secondary sex characteristics like changes in skin and growing hair, such as on the face, armpits, and pubic areas. And it's pretty cool the way that it affects the fetus as well. Hormones affect the development of the fetus during reproduction. Embryogenesis takes place, and there is a whole wash of hormones that occur. And we'll cover that a little bit in the reproductive chapter of our book as we get to that, I think in week 6 of this class. All right, the sleep-wake cycle is another function of the endocrine system. Your body's internal clock is controlled by an area of the brain called the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. All right. The SCN is located in the hypothalamus, and it is sensitive to signals of dark and light. The optic nerve in your eyes senses the morning light. Then the SCN triggers the release of cortisol and other hormones to help you wake up. They're like, oh, time to get up and get stressed out. But when darkness comes at night, the SCN sends signals to the pineal gland. This gland triggers the release of the chemical melatonin. The pineal gland is located deep inside the middle of our brain, actually in the exact center of our brain. And it's the only endocrine gland that is in contact with the outside world, and it senses when we're exposed to light, sort of in the way that when you walk past like a security light, the sensor goes off and the light turns on. The same thing that happens with the pineal gland. It actually has cells inside the gland that resemble the back of the retina in the eye, even though it's nestled deep in the center of our brain and doesn't have true direct access to light. In some animals, the book gives the instance of chameleons. In my case, I had an iguana. You could literally pet, you could pet the scale covering there, and it would literally cause him to go to sleep. His body would shut down, thinking it was nighttime. It senses light directly through the skull. In human beings, it likely senses light through special receptors in the back of our eyes that don't actually provide vision, but do dictate our circadian rhythms. Even the blind, even people with no sight have this rhythm, indicating that our pineal glands, along with other neurological inputs, can substitute these special cells in our eyes. I just find that super fascinating. Another function of the endocrine system is helping to regulate our mood. The hypothalamus is the big boy involved in the expression of emotions. It regulates many fundamental programs, such as keeping the body temperature correct, eating, drinking, and sexual behavior in check, like your thirst regulation, your hunger regulation, and how you act in terms of reproductive behavior. It plays a huge role in emotion. There are many examples of endocrine disorders or hormonal imbalances that can affect mental health, such as thyroid conditions. They can be caused due to imbalances in thyroid hormones, and they're linked to symptoms like depression, irritability, and anxiety. The hypothalamus controls the basic drives for hunger, thirst, and sexual attraction. So, this determines not only your behavior with reproduction, but also who you're attracted to and how you respond to various stimuli. The testes secrete testosterone, which in men and women is both linked to sexual arousal, but also aggression. Hormones like cortisol produced by the adrenal glands, those are above the kidneys, have the ability to make us feel stressed out. When people are stressed out, they will likely have higher levels of cortisol in their body. All right, those are the functions for today. It was quick and easy, and I will see you guys tomorrow.